Hello, everyone. I hope you're settling in comfortably as we begin this journey together. And I can't help but wonder, where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your corner of the world? It's always fascinating to imagine all of you scattered across different places. Some perhaps just waking up, others maybe drifting towards sleep, all listening to a story about a city that once stood at the heart of civilization. A place whose name still whispers through history, Babylon. Today, we will walk together through the streets, canals, and gardens of ancient Babylon, exploring how people lived, worked, celebrated, and even argued, hundreds of years before our modern lives took shape. As the sun slowly rises over the flat plains along the banks of the Euphrates, the city awakens in soft hues of pink and orange that reflect off the mud brick walls of houses and the glistening waters of narrow canals. Fishermen set out in small reed boats, their nets trailing lightly behind them, and merchants begin arranging goods on woven mats in the open markets. Barley, dates, lentils, and fish are carefully displayed, while the scent of fresh bread from small communal ovens mixes with the earthy smell of the river. Children run barefoot along the winding lanes, laughing as they chase one another past the low, whitewashed walls that mark the boundaries of family homes. Each courtyard filled with simple furnishings, earthenware pots, and small herb gardens where mint and dill sway in the morning breeze. In the center of the city, the great ziggurat rises like a mountain of clay, its tiers decorated with colored tiles that glimmer faintly in the dawn. Priests ascend its steep steps, carrying small offerings of incense and oil, murmuring prayers to Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, asking for protection, abundance, and guidance. These rituals, repeated daily, are a rhythm of life, grounding the people in a sense of order amidst the bustle of traders, laborers, and craftsmen. In the surrounding streets, artisans begin shaping clay into pots, weaving reeds into baskets, and engraving cuneiform tablets with styluses made of reed, recording debts, contracts, and letters to family members far away. Each tablet tells a story of daily life, some trivial, some urgent, yet all connecting the web of social and economic relationships that sustain the city. Among the merchants, a young woman named Ishtar carefully counts the small silver shekels she earned from selling fragrant oils. Her shop is modest, tucked between a cobbler's stall and a small bakery, yet she has a reputation for kindness and fairness, and many customers return to her for both the quality of her goods and the gentle way she negotiates. She greets an old friend who brings news from the royal palace, tales of a procession honoring the king's latest triumph, a display of music, dance, and exotic animals brought from distant lands, reminding everyone that even within the familiar streets of Babylon, the wider world always whispers just beyond the city walls. Meanwhile, laborers haul bricks and reeds along the streets, constructing new homes or repairing damaged roofs, their movements choreographed like a quiet dance of necessity, punctuated by the occasional call of a foreman or the laughter of a child running past. In the canals, women wash clothes in the cool water, splashing lightly, chatting with neighbors, gossiping about who attended last night's feast or who had an argument over trade prices. Stories that echo through the narrow lanes and linger in the warm, sunlit air. By mid-morning, the city hums with a peculiar harmony, a mix of clanging tools, the murmur of conversation, the distant bleat of goats, and the rhythmic splash of oars against water. Musicians occasionally set up near the marketplace, plucking strings and striking small drums, their melodies simple yet haunting, drifting above the chatter of buyers and sellers. As the day advances, the sun climbs higher, casting shadows that stretch along the cobbled paths and across the walls, painting the city in a tapestry of light and shade, guiding people through their routines, errands, and moments of rest. Even in this ordinary day, there are small surprises. A cat perched on a rooftop watches the fishmongers with quiet interest. A falcon swoops low over the streets, startling a flock of pigeons, and a street performer juggles clay balls while narrating a story from the reign of Hammurabi, drawing a small, appreciative crowd. The lives of Babylonians are intertwined in subtle ways, from the laborer who repairs a roof to the scribe recording sales, to the priest offering a prayer, each contributing to the rhythm of the city that has endured for centuries and will continue to resonate in memory long after the sun sets and the canals quiet. As we pause here for a moment, imagine the sun high above, the gentle warmth on your skin, the faint smell of fresh bread, the chatter of people and animals blending into a soft, continuous hum, a lullaby of daily life in one of history's greatest cities. This is Babylon as it breathes, as it wakes and works, loves and celebrates. A city alive in every small gesture, every routine, and every quiet conversation echoing along the streets, waiting for us to continue exploring its depths in the hours to come. As the morning slowly melts into a soft, golden noon, the streets of Babylon grow warmer, and the activities of its inhabitants shift with the rising sun. Alongside the busy marketplaces, narrow alleyways reveal quieter moments of domestic life. In one such alley, a family prepares their mid-morning meal, a simple combination of flatbread, dates, and soft cheese, laid out on woven mats in the shade of a low clay wall. The mother, Nudnanu, carefully shapes the dough with practiced hands, her movements steady and rhythmic, while her children chase one another, weaving between her legs, laughing, and occasionally stealing a date before she notices. The smell of baking bread drifts into the street, mingling with the sense of fresh herbs and smoke from small cooking fires, creating a sensory map of Babylonian daily life. Beyond these quiet lanes, in a bustling district closer to the city gates, craftsmen work diligently in the open air. A potter shapes a clay vessel on a simple wheel, his fingers pressing and coaxing the wet clay into elegant curves, while nearby, a metalworker hammers a thin sheet of bronze into a small statuette of Ishtar, the goddess of love and war. The rhythm of hammer against metal blends with the soft clatter of pottery, creating a strange music that marks the pulse of the city. Occasionally, the craftsmen pause to exchange news. Tales of a caravan arriving from distant Sumer, rumors of the king's son learning archery at the palace, whispers about the recent discovery of a new canal being dug to improve irrigation for crops outside the walls. Not far from the artisans, a small school sits quietly, shaded by date palms. A group of young scribes practices writing cuneiform on clay tablets, their fingers stained with wet clay as they press each wedge-shaped mark carefully, under the watchful eyes of their teacher, a man named Ashurban. He guides them patiently, correcting the placement of strokes and encouraging them to recite the proverbs and historical tales that accompany each lesson. The children recite the words slowly, their voices blending with the sounds of the streets outside, creating a delicate, almost meditative harmony that floats through the warm air. Meanwhile, in a courtyard filled with lush greenery, a gardener named Belu tends to his small but vibrant plot of vegetables, herbs, and fragrant flowers. He waters the plants with clay pitchers, adjusts bamboo supports for climbing vines, and hums quietly as he works. Nearby, a small group of women gathers to spin flax into thread, their conversations drifting from practical advice about weaving to lighthearted gossip about neighbors, visiting merchants, and local celebrations. Every sound, every gesture, contributes to the quiet symphony of life in Babylon, where work, play, and community blend seamlessly into a continuous flow. By afternoon, the sun casts long shadows across the ziggurat, emphasizing its height and dominance over the city. Pilgrims and worshippers make their way up the steep terraces, carrying small offerings of oil, grains, or crafted trinkets, while priests chant prayers and light incense. Some stop to admire the intricate murals depicting legendary tales of gods and heroes, their colors still vivid despite centuries of sun and dust. On the streets below, merchants take a brief pause, sitting on low stools to sip water or nibble on dried figs, observing the procession above them with quiet curiosity and respect, acknowledging the ever-present influence of religion and ritual in the rhythm of daily life. In a quieter neighborhood, a young man named Enlil walks along a narrow canal, pushing a small wooden boat filled with baskets of freshly harvested vegetables. He waves to neighbors, passing children, and an elderly storyteller sitting by the water's edge, spinning tales of heroic deeds from long ago. The storyteller's voice rises and falls in a melodic cadence, drawing a small crowd of listeners who lean in, their eyes reflecting fascination, delight, or quiet amusement at familiar anecdotes, some exaggerated, some probably true, all adding a layer of richness to the city's tapestry. The aroma of cooking intensifies as the afternoon stretches toward evening, signaling a shift from labor to leisure. Families gather in their courtyards for the main meal of the day, sharing bread, lentils, roasted meats, and fragrant stews flavored with cumin, coriander, and garlic. Children scamper about, testing their parents' patience while simultaneously listening to snippets of tales or instructions about household tasks. Street performers continue to entertain near the marketplace, balancing clay pots on their heads or spinning small hoops, their movements precise yet casual, designed to amuse passersby and occasionally earn a few coins. Evening brings a gradual cooling of the air, and as the sun dips toward the horizon, the city transforms again. Lanterns are lit along streets and in homes, casting warm, flickering light on the mud brick walls. Conversations shift to reflections on the day's work, plans for the next, and discussions of personal hopes and small grievances. In the canals, water shimmers under the lantern glow, and the soft lapping against the hulls of boats creates a lullaby-like rhythm that soothes both laborers returning from the fields and merchants closing their stalls. As the stars begin to appear, delicate and distant, the city hums with a slower, more contemplative energy. Families settle down, children yawn and curl into mats or hammocks, and the faint music of stringed instruments drifts through open windows. From the towering ziggurat to the quietest alley, Babylon breathes in unison, its people living rhythms shaped by centuries of tradition, necessity, and the subtle beauty of everyday life, where even the smallest details, a child's laugh, the hiss of a fire, or the call of a distant bird, carry significance in the continuous, flowing story of this remarkable city. As the stars settle into the night sky and the city of Babylon exhales a quieter rhythm, the nocturnal sounds begin to emerge, subtle and familiar, revealing a new layer of life that flourishes after the sun has gone. Narrow streets, which had been bustling with merchants and artisans during the day, now take on a more intimate and contemplative atmosphere. Lanterns flicker softly against mud brick walls, casting dancing shadows that seem to animate the quiet corners and doorways, while the gentle lapping of the Euphrates against boats provides a constant, soothing undertone. In these hours, a different kind of work and leisure emerges, highlighting aspects of Babylonian life often overlooked during the sunlit hours. In a small neighborhood near the southern gate, a potter named Samu carefully fires his latest creations in a modest kiln. The heat from the clay oven radiates into the cool night air, and he shifts the position of each pot with precision, making sure that the curves and rims are shaped to perfection. Occasionally, he pauses to wipe sweat from his brow and glance toward the canal, where a few waterfowl glide silently, reflecting the lantern's golden glow. While he works, a few neighbors pass by, exchanging quiet greetings, comments about the day's events, or observations on recent arrivals of travelers from faraway lands, whose goods promise new spices, fabrics, and stories for eager listeners. Meanwhile, in a courtyard fragrant with the scent of jasmine and wild herbs, a small group of women gathers to spin wool by the light of oil lamps. Their conversation meanders lazily, touching on domestic affairs, local gossip, and the arrival of a new musician who claims to have once performed in the king's palace. Each thread they twist and wind becomes a subtle narrative, connecting their hands, their voices, and their lives into the fabric of the city. Occasionally, a child peeks out from a nearby doorway, curious about the rhythmic motion, and the women respond with gentle encouragement, sharing small stories that blend instruction with amusement. Elsewhere, a young scribe named Dumuzi sits at a low wooden desk in a room lit by a single lamp, carefully pressing a stylus into wet clay to record the latest news from distant villages. Some of these tablets detail trade transactions, others recount the weather and its effect on crops, and still others capture poems, proverbs, and personal reflections. Dumuzi's movements are deliberate, almost meditative, as he observes the curves of each cuneiform mark, knowing that each will survive long after the words have been spoken aloud, carrying fragments of everyday life forward into history. In the open spaces of the city, near the main thoroughfares, night labor continues quietly. Guards patrol in pairs, walking the walls and gates, listening to the soft hum of distant conversations and the occasional bray of a donkey or bark of a dog. Their torches glow faintly, illuminating the brick pathways as they check for any unusual disturbances, ensuring that the city sleeps safely, uninterrupted by chaos or intrusion. Occasionally, a lone traveler arrives at the gate, their horse stamping in impatience, and the guards exchange brief words in low tones, recording names and purposes before letting them proceed, maintaining the careful balance between security and the natural flow of city life. In the residential areas, families share quiet moments together, the day's work giving way to reflection and small joys. Fathers recount tales of past generations, mothers prepare simple snacks of dried fruit or fresh cheese, and children curl up under blankets, listening intently. A gentle wind moves through the open windows, carrying scents of baked bread from the communal ovens, mingling with the faint fragrance of reeds, clay, and distant flowers. The city seems alive yet gentle, vibrant yet calm, its heartbeat slow and steady under the watchful eyes of the stars. Meanwhile, along the banks of the Euphrates, fishermen who had returned earlier in the evening sit by small fires, mending nets or roasting the day's catch. The flames flicker in the night, and their soft conversation blends with the distant ripple of water against the boat hulls. Stories of river spirits, monstrous fish, and heroic feats of past fishermen drift between them, whispered carefully, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the water itself. These tales, passed from one generation to another, provide a subtle continuity, connecting the rhythms of the river to the rhythms of the city. Across town, a small tavern hums quietly, its wooden walls exuding the warmth of embers in the hearth. Patrons sip honeyed wine or barley beer, discussing the day's labor, trade, and personal affairs. A musician plucks gently at a stringed instrument, creating a soft, melancholic tune that drifts beyond the open door, blending with the sounds of the night. Occasional laughter punctuates the air, restrained and intimate, reminding everyone within earshot that even in the calm of evening, human life is alive, rich, and connected. As the night deepens, shadows lengthen further, and the city's pulse slows even more, inviting contemplation and quiet reflection. Cats patrol the streets silently, their eyes glinting in the lamplight, while small rodents scurry under carts and along walls, adding tiny, unseen movements to the nocturnal symphony. Above, the stars shimmer with a distant clarity, unaffected by the earthly hustle below, bearing silent witness to the endless cycle of life in Babylon. A city of work, play, devotion, and simple human moments, all unfolding quietly beneath the vast, dark sky. Even in this tranquil night, there are layers of life waiting to be discovered. Whispers of secret meetings in hidden courtyards, hushed arguments over trade disputes, minor celebrations of births or marriages, and the gentle creaking of wooden doors as someone checks on the safety of a home. Every sound, every movement, every small detail weaves into the broader story of Babylon, a living city where each citizen, whether a laborer, a merchant, a scribe, or a child, plays a role in the endless ebb and flow of daily existence, forming an intricate tapestry that will continue to evolve as night turns into day once more. As night slowly gives way to the soft, pale light of dawn, the city of Babylon begins to stir once again, this time with a gentler, more deliberate energy than the bustling mornings of the past day. The first rays of sunlight touch the tops of the ziggurat, illuminating the colored tiles in a soft, almost ethereal glow, while the streets below remain quiet, the faint echoes of the previous night's activity lingering in the cool air. In one quieter district along the Western Canal, a baker named Tashmedum kneads dough with slow, purposeful movements, listening to the distant calls of merchants preparing for the day. The aroma of baking bread begins to rise through narrow lanes, mingling with the earthy scent of wet clay from recent canal maintenance, creating a familiar and comforting morning atmosphere that signals the start of another day in the city. Near the city gates, a small group of traders prepares for a journey to the farmlands beyond Babylon's walls. They carefully load baskets of dates, barley, and woven fabrics onto ox-drawn carts, securing each bundle with ropes and simple knots that have been practiced for years. A young assistant, barely old enough to understand the intricacies of trade, carries small clay jars of oil, watching the older men move with quiet efficiency. They exchange news from the outer villages, talk of unusually heavy rainfall affecting the southern fields, reports of a neighboring town's festival, and whispers of an incoming caravan rumored to carry rare stones and imported spices. Each piece of information is stored carefully in memory, as vital for planning and negotiation as the goods themselves. Meanwhile, in the residential quarters, families begin their own routines. Women sweep courtyards and alleyways with bundles of reeds, dusting away the remnants of the previous night, while men tend to small gardens, pruning vegetables and herbs in preparation for the day's meals. Children play simple games along the walls, using small clay balls or sticks to improvise races and contests, their laughter light and unrestrained, a sound that rises above the soft clatter of household chores. Dogs bark in the distance, guarding homes or accompanying shepherds along the nearby outskirts of the city, while cats patrol the roofs with quiet, deliberate steps, ever watchful. Not far from the bustling canal, a small school is already in session. The teacher, a wise man named Nabu, guides his pupils through the practice of cuneiform on clay tablets, correcting strokes with patient, deliberate care. Today, they are learning proverbs about diligence and fairness, phrases that reflect the values of Babylonian society and the expectations placed upon its citizens. The children's voices rise and fall, blending with the sounds of the city outside. The distant splash of water against boats, the rhythmic clatter of a craftsman's tools, and the occasional crow of a rooster signaling that morning is firmly established. In a courtyard filled with flowering plants and low, carefully constructed benches, an older woman named Ninlil prepares a medicinal mixture from herbs grown in her garden. She carefully crushes mint, thyme, and willow bark, blending them with water and honey to create a simple remedy for common ailments. A neighbor leans over to watch, asking questions about the plants and their uses, while a child peeks from behind a column, fascinated by the transformation of simple leaves into liquid that promises relief. Even small, mundane moments like this reveal the intimate knowledge of nature, passed down through generations, shaping daily life in ways both practical and quietly profound. As the sun climbs higher, the city awakens fully. Artisans hammer, mold, and carve, Merchants arrange fresh goods for eager buyers, and laborers carry out repairs to homes and streets. In the central market, a storyteller gathers a small crowd, narrating tales of kings, gods, and legendary heroes. Children sit cross-legged in front, wide-eyed, while adults lean on carts and benches, listening with quiet attention. The stories are not only entertainment but also a living memory of history, myth, and the shared identity of the people, each narrative adding layers to the rich tapestry of Babylonian life. Along the canals, water shimmers under the bright sun as fishermen cast nets with practiced skill, pulling in fish that will provide sustenance for families and merchants alike. Boats laden with reeds, pottery, and woven mats glide silently, guided by poles and oars, their movement almost hypnotic against the calm surface of the water. Women wash clothes along the banks, their rhythmic scrubbing blending with occasional laughter and the splash of water, creating an intimate soundtrack of daily routines that has echoed in the city for generations. As midday approaches, the smells of cooking begin to rise again, signaling preparations for the main meal of the day. Courtyards fill with families sharing bread, lentils, roasted meat, and stews flavored with cumin, coriander, and garlic. Conversation drifts from minor concerns to shared stories, sometimes accompanied by gentle music from stringed instruments, a harp or lute strumming soft, undemanding melodies. Even in these ordinary moments, Babylon reveals its depth. The delicate interplay of labor and leisure, work and celebration, community and individuality, each layer contributing to the complex and enduring rhythm of life in the city. By mid-afternoon, the sun casts long shadows across walls, boats, and streets, and the city begins to slow slightly. Laborers rest, merchants sip water, children play in the alleys, and travelers arrive, bringing fresh news or goods from neighboring towns. The canals reflect the deepening blue of the sky, broken only by the occasional ripple from passing oars or the movement of a fish breaking the surface. In these moments, Babylon seems to breathe as a single entity, alive and cohesive, its heart beating through the subtle, continuous actions of its people, each contributing to a collective story that unfolds day after day. As afternoon drifts toward evening, the light in Babylon softens, washing the mud-brick streets and canal waters in warm shades of amber and rose. In a quieter section near the eastern walls, the air hums with a mixture of domestic chores and the subtle excitement of preparing for evening gatherings. A family in a modest home begins to arrange mats and cushions in their courtyard, setting out bowls of roasted lentils, dates, and small portions of goat cheese, while their children chase each other around the low walls, weaving in and out of hanging laundry that sways gently in the evening breeze. Even in these ordinary routines, there is a rhythm and harmony, a slow unfolding of life that seems timeless in its predictability and comfort. In a nearby alley, a young apprentice named Zaba helps a craftsman polish finely carved wooden figurines, representing gods, animals, and mythical creatures, the smell of which shavings mingles with the faint scent of oil used to protect the carvings, creating an atmosphere of careful focus and quiet artistry. Zaba listens as the master craftsman recounts tales of faraway lands, of merchants traveling across deserts and rivers, and of exotic animals that astonish the people of Babylon. These stories, whispered softly between hammer taps and sanding strokes, inspire imagination and a quiet sense of wonder, blending seamlessly into the texture of everyday life. Meanwhile, along the banks of the Euphrates, boatmen begin to tie their vessels more securely for the night. Nets are folded neatly, oars stacked with precision, and small fires are lit in the boats to warm the air and prepare for any travelers who might pass through under the moonlight. The gentle lapping of water against hulls and the occasional croak of a frog create a lullaby-like backdrop for those who remain awake, casting a calm over the busy city and offering a sense of continuity as day transitions to night. In another district, a small temple dedicated to the goddess Inanna glows faintly from oil lamps placed along its entrance. Priests and priestesses move silently, preparing incense and offerings, arranging bowls of fruit, small clay figurines, and jugs of oil. The scent of burning frankincense rises into the evening air, mingling with the faint aromas of nearby kitchens. Visitors arrive quietly, bringing their own tokens of devotion and whispering prayers for health, fortune, and protection. Even as ordinary citizens complete their daily tasks, the spiritual heartbeat of Babylon continues, a constant presence that frames the city's rhythms and reminds all of the connection between the divine and the mundane. On the streets surrounding the marketplace, merchants pack up their remaining goods, tying sacks and stacking baskets carefully. A few lingering buyers negotiate the last purchases of the day, discussing prices with soft voices and small gestures, while street performers entertain small groups with tricks, balancing acts, and music. A young musician strums a lyre softly, weaving a melody that drifts along the canal and through open windows, while children pause mid-chase to listen for a moment, eyes wide with quiet curiosity and delight. In the homes farther from the city center, the evening meal is underway. A man named Namtar carves roasted lamb with careful precision, while his wife arranges platters of bread and vegetables. Children sit cross-legged, eagerly anticipating the first bites, and elders recline on mats, sharing stories of ancestors, ancient battles, and the construction of Babylon's great walls. The conversation flows freely, sometimes punctuated by laughter or the soft murmur of agreement, creating a gentle soundtrack of domestic life. Small, almost imperceptible moments. A child's shy smile, the clink of a clay bowl against the table, the warmth of the sun retreating from the courtyard layer together, building a complex and intimate portrait of the city. As darkness deepens, the lanterns along streets, canals, and courtyards glow steadily, illuminating narrow passages and casting long shadows on mud brick walls. Couples walk slowly along the banks of the Euphrates, discussing minor affairs or sharing quiet laughter, while the occasional messenger hurries past, carrying urgent letters to traders, officials, or family members. Dogs roam the streets, alert and watchful, while cats leap silently from rooftops to alleyways, their eyes reflecting the warm glow of lanterns. Even small details, the creak of a door, the ripple of water, the faint smell of cooked food, form a continuous sensory map, guiding inhabitants and visitors alike through the unfolding narrative of the city. Near the southern walls, a small festival quietly begins to take shape. Children practice simple dances, swinging clay rattles in rhythm, while older villagers prepare a modest bonfire for the night. Songs echo softly through the air, their origins lost in time but familiar to the participants, mingling with the gentle sounds of evening labor and domestic life. It is not a grand spectacle, but in its simplicity, it captures the essence of Babylonian culture. Communal enjoyment, shared traditions, and the delicate interplay between work, play, and devotion. As the night deepens, the city slows, and the inhabitants settle into routines of rest. Hammocks sway lightly in courtyards, small fires flicker in kitchens, and the soft murmur of voices drifts from open windows. The stars above shimmer faintly, reflecting the continuity of life below, while the Euphrates flows steadily, carrying whispers of the past, present, and future through the heart of Babylon. In these hours, even the smallest gestures, the closing of a shutter, the careful placement of a lamp, the gentle hum of a lullaby, add to the tapestry of existence, preserving the quiet, enduring rhythm of one of history's greatest cities. As the first light of dawn begins to soften the night sky, Babylon stirs gently, the city moving between the quiet of early morning and the promise of a new day. Along the western canals, reeds sway lightly in the gentle breeze, and small boats rock softly against the banks. Their cargo, baskets of fish, clay jars of oil, bundles of reeds, ready to be unloaded as the day begins. A fisherman named Anu carefully unties his vessel, checking the nets he had mended the night before, noting the small holes that needed repair before the river offered its bounty. The air carries a subtle mix of earthy water scents, baking bread from nearby ovens, and the faint smoke of early fires kindled for cooking or warmth. In a modest home near the central ziggurat, a mother named Damkina awakens her children with gentle nudges, their sleepy voices blending with the distant hum of street activity. She fetches water from the nearby well and prepares a small breakfast of barley porridge sweetened with dates, stirring quietly as the children stir from their mats. Each movement is deliberate, a practiced choreography of domestic care, ensuring nourishment, comfort, and safety before the day's busyness overtakes them. Outside, neighbors greet one another with quiet words, exchanging news, small courtesies, and updates about upcoming events in the city, reinforcing the intricate social bonds that form the foundation of Babylonian life. Not far away, along a cobbled lane, a weaver named Shulgi opens his workshop to begin spinning dyed threads into fine cloth. The loom hums softly as it moves, and the colors, rich blues, deep reds, earthy browns, catch the morning light, offering a subtle visual melody to accompany the rhythmic sounds of work. Apprentices move carefully around him, observing the precise motions, learning not only the craft itself but the patience and attention required to sustain such artistry. Occasionally, a curious child from the street peers through the doorway, captivated by the patterns forming under the skilled hands of the master, offering a quiet reminder that learning and wonder are part of everyday life in Babylon. Near the bustling market, a young woman named Ishtar carefully arranges small clay jars of scented oils and perfumes, their delicate fragrances mingling in the air. Each jar is labeled with the name of the herb or flower it contains: lavender, myrrh, date blossom, or hyacinth. Buyers approach slowly, testing the scents, inquiring politely, negotiating lightly, and departing with small purchases that bring the merchant both income and satisfaction. Nearby, a group of children plays a game of tag, their laughter punctuating the hum of early commerce, while a street performer juggles clay balls, weaving small gestures and stories into the unfolding rhythm of the morning. Along the city walls, guards begin their rounds, their leather sandals clattering softly on stone pathways as they patrol from gate to gate. The rise of the sun casts their long shadows onto the mud brick ramparts, and they nod to passing citizens, recording minor observations, such as travelers' arrivals or the movement of animals being led through the gates. Their watchful presence ensures a sense of order, a calm that allows merchants, laborers, and families to conduct their daily routines without interruption, a subtle and nearly invisible thread woven into the fabric of city life. In a courtyard fragrant with jasmine and marjoram, a healer named EA prepares poultices and tinctures, blending herbs grown in small plots behind homes. He works quietly, crushing leaves and mixing powders with honey and oil, while his apprentices watch carefully, absorbing the intricate knowledge of medicinal practices passed down through generations. Some villagers stop by with minor ailments, bruises, cuts, or colds, receiving advice, treatments, and occasionally a gentle word about the importance of rest and nourishment. Even in these simple interactions, the continuity of culture, knowledge, and daily life in Babylon is evident, carried forward through care, observation, and practice. By mid-morning, the streets hum with the full cadence of commerce. Bakers pull freshly baked bread from clay ovens, displaying fragrant loaves on woven mats. Potters stack vessels, mugs, and bowls for sale. Weavers showcase colorful cloth that glints in the sunlight. Small animals wander through the streets, some belonging to households, others drawn to food scraps or curious by nature. The ebb and flow of movement, sounds, and smells forms a continuous sensory experience, one that the people of Babylon navigate with practiced familiarity. Even minor details, a pigeon landing atop a roof, a child's shout echoing along an alley, the faint creak of a cart moving over cobblestones, contribute to the living tapestry of city life. As the afternoon approaches, preparations for midday meals begin. Courtyards fill with families arranging plates of roasted lentils, barley porridge, fresh dates, and small pieces of lamb. Children sit cross-legged on mats, eagerly awaiting their portions, while elders recline, observing, guiding, and occasionally joining in gentle conversation. The aroma of simmering stews, baking bread, and roasted meat mingles with the scent of fresh herbs growing in nearby gardens, a layered olfactory map of daily sustenance. Conversations are punctuated by quiet laughter, the rhythmic clatter of dishes, and the soft rustling of sandals against the ground, composing an intricate symphony of domestic and urban life. By late afternoon, the sun casts long, dappled shadows across streets, rooftops, and canals, and the pace of activity begins to shift. Merchants begin to wrap up sales, artisans pause to rest or inspect their work, and laborers take a brief respite before preparing for evening tasks. Small rituals unfold. A child delivers water to an elder neighbor, a street musician practices a new melody on a stringed instrument, and a young couple quietly exchanges glances as they walk along a canal, sharing a brief, private moment in the midst of the city's broader rhythms. In these small, ordinary instances, Babylon continues to reveal the subtle, interwoven patterns of human life. A city alive in its details, harmonies, and endless flow of ordinary moments, each contributing to the story of a civilization that endures in memory long after the sun has set. As the late afternoon sun begins to sink toward the horizon, the city of Babylon is bathed in a gentle golden glow that softens the edges of its streets, walls, and canals. Along the eastern quarter, narrow lanes twist between houses, their mud brick walls warm under the low sun, and small courtyards come alive with subtle, intimate activity. A family prepares for the evening, arranging mats and trays of roasted lentils, barley porridge, and fresh dates. Children chase one another through the courtyard, giggling as their shadows stretch across the ground, while the mother, Ninmah, tends a small hearth, carefully tending to a simmering stew of lamb and herbs. Even in these ordinary moments, the rhythms of Babylonian life are visible, an intricate balance of labor, nourishment, and familial care. Not far away, in a small workshop tucked between two larger homes, a young artisan named Ishkin shapes delicate jewelry from bronze and semi-precious stones. His fingers move deftly, threading beads and twisting thin wires, while a small apprentice watches closely, learning not only the techniques but the patient, repetitive attention to detail that marks the difference between a simple trinket and a cherished ornament. The faint scent of polished bronze and wax lingers in the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversation from nearby courtyards. Passers-by glance into the workshop, curious at the gleaming objects, occasionally stopping to inquire about their use or meaning, and Ishkin responds with gentle patience, a subtle teacher of both craft and culture. Along the banks of a quieter canal, a few women are busy washing clothes and preparing linens for their families. The water shimmers under the fading sun, reflecting their movements in delicate, fractured patterns. As they scrub and rinse, they share small anecdotes, sometimes humorous, sometimes reflective, about neighbors, children, or events of the day. Occasionally, a fish leaps from the water, startling a child who stands at the edge of the canal, and laughter echoes softly along the banks. Nearby, a gardener tends a modest patch of vegetables and herbs, trimming, watering, and guiding the plant's growth with deliberate care. The smells of mint, dill, and thyme mixing with the water's earthy aroma. In the city's central square, preparations begin for a modest evening performance. A musician sets up a small drum and a stringed instrument, while children gather to watch a juggler who balances clay balls and small vessels, weaving quiet comedy into the ordinary bustle of the streets. Merchants finish packing their goods, stacking baskets and clay jars, while a few travelers arrive at the gates, their carts heavy with imported spices, fine fabrics, or exotic animals. Their arrival brings a subtle excitement, as news of distant lands and unusual goods spreads quickly through the marketplace, adding a sense of wonder and curiosity to the ordinary flow of city life. In a residential courtyard near the southern walls, an elder named Marduk recounts stories of ancient kings to a small group of children seated on mats. His voice rises and falls with measured cadence, weaving tales of legendary battles, the construction of massive walls, and clever deeds of kings and priests. The children listen intently, their eyes wide, occasionally whispering questions or gasps, while parents nearby carry on household chores, quietly observing the lessons of history being passed down. Even in these simple exchanges, the continuity of culture, memory, and tradition is preserved, quietly threading the generations together. As the sun continues to descend, shadows lengthen across rooftops and streets, softening the city's sharp edges. Courtyards fill with families enjoying the evening meal. Bread, stews, roasted lentils, and small portions of goat cheese are shared, accompanied by conversation, gentle laughter, and occasionally, music from stringed instruments. The aroma of cooked herbs and baked bread mixes with the scent of night-blooming flowers, creating an olfactory tapestry that drifts gently along streets and alleys, filling homes with a quiet warmth. Dogs roam near gates, alert and attentive, while cats weave silently among walls and rooftops, their eyes glinting in the dim light of lanterns. In a small temple near the city center, priests and priestesses prepare for evening prayers, arranging small offerings of fruit, oil, and crafted figurines. Incense burns gently, sending curling ribbons of fragrant smoke into the air, mixing subtly with the scents of nearby kitchens and gardens. Worshippers arrive quietly, bowing or placing small tokens on altars, offering prayers for protection, health, and prosperity. The temple's walls reflect the soft glow of lanterns, and the hushed, rhythmic chants create a gentle, enveloping soundscape that seems to settle over the city, linking the spiritual with the ordinary in seamless harmony. Along the canals, boats rock softly in the gentle evening breeze. Fishermen repair nets, adjust cargo, and prepare for the next day, while the reflections of lanterns and twilight shimmer on the water. Children lean over railings to watch, occasionally dropping small reeds or stones into the water, and adults look on with patient amusement. The combination of labor, leisure, storytelling, and ritual in this hour creates a subtle cadence, a quiet but persistent heartbeat of Babylonian life that continues as night slowly deepens and the city prepares for rest. As darkness envelopes the streets, the city slows, yet life does not entirely cease. Soft voices echo from courtyards and alleys, footsteps move quietly over cobblestones, and occasional laughter drifts along canals. Even the smallest gestures, the careful placement of a lantern, the closing of a door, the hum of a song, contribute to the enduring rhythm of the city, a subtle harmony linking generations and moments into an unbroken story of daily life, devotion, work, and gentle amusement in one of the ancient world's most remarkable cities. As night deepens over Babylon, the city takes on a calm, reflective rhythm, one that contrasts sharply with the clamor of the daytime streets. In the quieter western district, households light small clay lamps, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on mud brick walls and woven mats. A young boy named Lugal rises quietly from his corner, careful not to wake his younger siblings, and tiptoes to the courtyard where his mother, Ninlil, is arranging trays of dried dates, figs, and small bowls of goat cheese. The air carries the mixed scents of food, clay, and the faint smokiness of last night's fires, creating an intimate sensory world that feels private yet connected to the larger life of the city. In a narrow alley nearby, a potter named Shulgi works by the soft glow of a lantern, shaping a small amphora for oil storage. His hands, rough and calloused from years of practice, move with deliberate care, guiding the clay into smooth curves. Each vessel carries a subtle individuality, a mark of the artisan's attention to detail and pride in work. Occasionally, he pauses to listen to the distant laughter of children playing near the canal or the rhythmic patter of water against wooden hulls, reminders of the living city surrounding his workshop. Along the central canal, a small crowd gathers near a low bridge where a street storyteller, an elderly man named Dumuzi, weaves quiet tales of gods, heroes, and ordinary people whose deeds echo through time. The listeners, both young and old, lean in closer, absorbing each word, each pause, as the storyteller's voice rises and falls like the gentle flow of the river below. Children's eyes widen at mentions of mighty kings, while adults nod knowingly at familiar proverbs and anecdotes. The stories are modest, intimate, yet rich with cultural memory, quietly binding listeners to their shared past. In a courtyard filled with herbs and flowers, a woman named Bao arranges small jars of scented oils she has made throughout the day. Lavender, hyacinth, and frankincense mingle in the air, their fragrances delicate yet persistent. She carefully labels each jar with cuneiform symbols, a small reflection of her literacy and craft. A neighbor stops briefly, inhaling the aromas and exchanging a few words about health remedies, while children in the courtyard peek through the open doorway, curious about the process and learning through observation. Across town, a small tavern hums with subdued evening activity. Patrons sip barley beer sweetened with dates, nibble on roasted lentils, and discuss the day's labor, minor disputes, or distant happenings in the surrounding villages. A musician plays a lyre softly in the corner, the gentle pluck of strings blending with murmured conversation, footsteps in the alley, and the occasional clink of a clay cup. The music carries a quiet melancholy yet comfort, a backdrop for reflection after the workday, and a gentle companion to the rhythm of ordinary life. Near the southern walls, guards continue their patrols, walking slowly in pairs, the soft clatter of sandals against stone pathways echoing in the night. They observe the city with careful attention, noting arrivals of travelers, subtle movements along the walls, and the occasional stray animal. Their presence is reassuring rather than intrusive, a subtle reminder that the flow of city life, labor, commerce, leisure, and domestic routines continues smoothly and safely. In residential courtyards, families settle down for their evening meals, sharing bread, roasted meat, lentils, and small bowls of vegetables. Conversations meander lazily between past events, practical concerns, and quiet amusement. Children lean forward eagerly, listening to elders recount tales of heroic ancestors, minor legends, and local events. The blend of nourishment, storytelling, and gentle companionship forms a subtle harmony that underscores the importance of communal life, teaching lessons of tradition, morality, and human connection without force or formality. Along the canals, fishermen ready small fires for cooking the day's catch, while a few boats drift lazily with the current, anchored near the banks. The reflection of lanterns dances across the water, mingling with the soft ripples caused by occasional fish or the movement of a passing boat. A young apprentice watches, fascinated, while an older fisherman offers quiet instruction, teaching patience, skill, and awareness of the river's moods. The canal becomes both a workplace and a stage for learning, observation, and shared human experience, linking families, tradesmen, and the river itself into a subtle, ongoing story of life. Even in the quietest corners of Babylon, minor details reveal the depth of daily existence. A child practicing the pronunciation of cuneiform signs in soft whispers, a neighbor secretly leaving a small gift of dates for an elderly widow, the faint scent of incense drifting from a home shrine, or the rhythmic clatter of tools in preparation for tomorrow's labor. Each sound, smell, and movement weaves into the city's continuous narrative, forming a complex, living tapestry that blends ordinary human life with culture, ritual, and natural rhythm. As the stars rise and the moon casts a pale glow over rooftops and canals, the city begins to slow further, yet life does not cease entirely. Cats prowl silently across walls, dogs patrol courtyards, and the occasional traveler makes his way along quiet streets. The faint hum of conversation, the distant flow of the Euphrates, and the occasional toll of a small bell create a gentle symphony, a soft, unbroken heartbeat that underscores the city's continuity. Babylon, in these hours, is alive yet tranquil, its rhythm persistent, delicate, and enduring. A city where every minor gesture contributes to a larger, timeless story. As the first light of dawn gently brushes the rooftops of Babylon, a subtle chorus of sounds begins to awaken the city once again. In a quiet quarter near the northern walls, a woman named Adadamu fetches water from a nearby well, her movements steady and familiar from years of practice. The clatter of the bucket and the soft splash as she fills it echo faintly against the mud brick walls, mixing with the distant crow of a rooster and the soft rustle of leaves in a gentle morning breeze. Across the alley, children stir in their mats, blinking sleep from their eyes, while their parents begin to prepare the first meals of the day. Porridge sweetened with dates, small pieces of goat cheese, and fresh water to wash it down. Near the central market, a young trader named Enlilarim lays out sacks of barley and dates on woven mats, arranging them meticulously to attract passing buyers. He notes the arrival of a traveling merchant from a distant village, who brings rare items like woven fabrics in unusual colors and small figurines crafted from semi-precious stones. Buyers approach cautiously, touching the cloth, inspecting the pottery, and exchanging quiet words as negotiations begin in low, measured tones. Children weave between their legs, drawn by curiosity and the soft aroma of freshly baked bread wafting from nearby ovens. Along a narrow canal, fishermen begin to untangle nets and check their vessels. One man, named Ishmidagon, lifts a small basket of fish onto the shore, inspecting each one carefully, while a boy assists, learning the subtleties of handling slippery catches without damaging them. The faint splash of water and the occasional murmur of conversation create a rhythm that blends seamlessly with the city's awakening. Small boats glide silently, tied securely along the banks, their occupants preparing for the day's work or travel. In the eastern quarter, a potter's workshop comes alive with the gentle tap of hands shaping wet clay. The potter, named Nabu Shumliber, carefully smooths the curves of a large storage jar, while apprentices observe, their attention keen on every movement and detail. The earthy scent of clay mixes with the faint aroma of herbs drying nearby, offering a sensory snapshot of the city's interconnected daily life. Each piece of pottery, carefully molded and fired, is both functional and a subtle reflection of skill and aesthetic sensibility that marks the heart of Babylonian craftsmanship. In residential courtyards, women sweep and tidy open spaces, preparing them for the day's tasks and the comfort of family members. The sound of brooms against packed dirt and stone harmonizes with distant voices, laughter of children playing simple games, and the occasional bray of a donkey making its way along the alley. A small garden thrives nearby, tended with careful hands, and the fragrance of mint, dill, and thyme drifts through open doorways, reminding inhabitants of the delicate balance between domestic life and nature's quiet gifts. Meanwhile, near the southern gates, guards patrol silently, their sandals clattering lightly on cobblestones as they inspect the city's entrances and walls. Travelers begin to arrive in the early morning, some carrying small loads of goods, others bringing news from distant villages. The guards nod and exchange brief words with each traveler, recording essential details while maintaining the calm order of the city. Their presence, though understated, is crucial to the smooth operation of daily life, blending seamlessly into the overall rhythm of Babylon. A small temple near the heart of the city awakens as well, priests arranging offerings of fruit, oil, and clay figurines while chanting softly in praise of the gods. Devotees enter quietly, offering small tokens of gratitude or whispered prayers for protection, health, or prosperity. The temple exudes a tranquil energy that flows outward into the surrounding streets, reminding all who pass of the connection between daily life and the divine, and reinforcing a subtle continuity of culture and belief that underpins the city's routines. By mid-morning, the city hums with activity. Bakers pull fragrant loaves from clay ovens, merchants weigh grains and barter with coins or goods, and artisans hammer, carve, or weave, each contributing to the intricate tapestry of urban life. Children run between lanes, sometimes assisting adults, sometimes simply observing, their laughter blending with the ambient noise of the city. Even minor details, the flicker of sunlight on a polished vessel, the gentle sway of laundry on a line, the ripple of a passing boat in the canal, add layers to the living portrait of Babylon, emphasizing its complexity and enduring charm. As the morning progresses, preparations for meals and labor continue in a coordinated rhythm. Courtyards fill with families arranging food, workers pause to share small portions of bread or dates, and merchants check inventories, preparing for buyers yet to arrive. Every gesture, sound, and movement contributes to a collective pulse, a subtle yet persistent heartbeat that binds each citizen into the living organism of the city. Even the soft footsteps of a visitor crossing a quiet lane, the distant crow of a bird, or the faint hum of conversation across a courtyard enrich the continuity of life, preserving the seamless narrative of Babylonian existence. By late morning, the city is fully awake, and its intricate patterns of labor, learning, leisure, and devotion continue, unnoticed yet essential. Families, merchants, artisans, and laborers interact through unspoken rhythms, gestures, and small routines that have persisted for generations. Every individual, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, contributes to the city's enduring story, a narrative composed not of singular events, but of continuous, interconnected moments that ripple outward, shaping both the present and the memory of Babylon for generations to come. As the sun climbs higher into the bright blue sky, the city of Babylon hums with a steady, vibrant energy. Along the western canals, merchants adjust bundles of reeds and clay jars, securing them for delivery or sale, while water ripples gently against wooden hulls, reflecting the sunlight in glimmering patterns. A young boy named Asher helps his father unload a small boat, carefully counting and stacking baskets of dates and barley. Every movement is precise, learned from repetition, yet full of quiet care that preserves both goods and the delicate trust between father and son. Nearby, a baker named Lamassu lifts freshly baked loaves from a clay oven, their fragrance drifting along the alleyways and into courtyards. The scent mingles with the earthy aroma of wet mud from the canals and the faint smoke of neighboring hearths, creating an atmosphere that is simultaneously lively and comforting. Children approach, their eyes wide, as Lamassu offers small pieces of bread, the simple gesture reinforcing the bonds of neighborhood life, generosity, and daily routine. In a narrow street lined with workshops, a weaver named Sam Ash arranges colored threads on his loom, preparing to transform them into patterned fabrics for both sale and personal use. The hum of the loom combines with the rhythmic tapping of a potter shaping clay nearby, creating an unintentional symphony of labor. Apprentices stand by attentively, learning both skill and patience, observing the subtle interplay of precision and artistry that defines the craft. Occasionally, a passerby stops to admire a newly completed piece, exchanging a few polite words with Sam Ash before moving along, part of the continuous ebb and flow of the bustling city. In a quiet courtyard behind the city's southern walls, a healer named Gula mixes herbs and powders, preparing remedies for minor ailments. She crushes mint, thyme, and willow bark, blending them with honey and oil, while a neighbor watches and asks questions about the plant's uses. The young child of the household peeks around a column, fascinated by the transformation of simple ingredients into healing concoctions, silently absorbing the wisdom that has been passed down through generations. Even the smallest domestic acts contribute to the rhythm of Babylonian life, blending care, knowledge, and routine into a essence. At the marketplace, merchants arrange their goods with careful attention, displaying pottery, textiles, and small carved figurines. Buyers wander between stalls, inspecting items, discussing prices in low voices, and exchanging small pleasantries. A young apprentice carries baskets of dry dates, navigating between the crowd with careful steps, occasionally tripping over a stone but quickly recovering. Nearby, a street performer balances clay pots on his head, eliciting laughter from a small audience of children and adults alike. These ordinary interactions, commerce, entertainment, negotiation, observation, form the intricate social web that defines Babylon's public life. Along the central canal, fishermen prepare nets and small boats, glancing at the water for signs of movement. One fisherman, named Anshar, lifts a small catch of fish, inspecting each for quality before placing them in baskets. A boy assists, learning the delicate skill of handling slippery fish without crushing them, while the gentle lapping of the water creates a quiet, continuous rhythm that contrasts with the hum of activity along the streets. The canals themselves are arteries of life, connecting homes, workshops, and markets, while simultaneously offering food, transportation, and subtle leisure in moments of pause. In a residential courtyard, families prepare midday meals, spreading mats and arranging bowls of roasted lentils, barley porridge, small portions of lamb, and fresh vegetables. Conversation drifts from minor complaints to shared laughter and storytelling, blending seamlessly with the aroma of cooking and the distant sounds of the marketplace. Children play simple games nearby, sometimes assisting with chores, sometimes simply observing the movements of adults and older siblings. The interplay of domestic care, nourishment, and quiet amusement exemplifies the continuity of life, tying each individual moment to the larger rhythm of the city. A small temple near the heart of the city opens for midday prayers. Priests arrange offerings and chant softly, their voices rising and falling in gentle cadences, while worshippers approach, placing small clay figurines or jars of oil as tokens of devotion. The temple is not grand, but it is intimate, a space where ordinary citizens intersect with ritual and spiritual practice, reinforcing the subtle moral and cultural framework that underpins daily existence. The scents of burning incense mingle with the distant aroma of baked bread, creating a layered sensory environment that is uniquely Babylonian. By early afternoon, the city begins to slow slightly as laborers pause, merchants sip water, and children retreat to shaded corners. Small streets echo with quieter steps and the patterns of daily life, commerce, craftsmanship, household care, ritual, and recreation, continue with a steadiness that feels both natural and essential. Even minor details, the flicker of a lantern, the ripple of a passing boat, the faint laughter of a child, contribute to the ongoing story of the city, a narrative composed. In these hours, Babylon demonstrates its resilience, beauty, and quiet complexity. A city where every minor act, sound, and gesture adds to an enduring, continuous rhythm of existence. From the smallest courtyard to the bustling central market, from the quiet canal banks to the temple's inner sanctum, life unfolds seamlessly, ordinary yet profound, forming a continuous story of labor, devotion, leisure, and community that will ripple through the city for the remainder of the day and into the night.